Hello, it's John from Tablet Class Math, and this is going to be a very important video, especially for those of you that are serious about learning mathematics. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share with you the trends, the top tips that I've seen over several decades of teaching middle and high school mathematics. I'm going to tell you the things that successful students do, and also, really, these are the things that people who struggle and fail mathematics, these are the things that they don't do. And these are simple little tips that if you start following these tips, you will see a dramatic improvement in your math skills. And if you need help in mathematics, I have a ton of content on my YouTube channel from basic math to advanced math. And if you need really full on course instruction, then check out my full main math course or math program, excuse me, at tcmathacademy.com. You can find links to my math courses in the description of this video. All right, so let's go and get into this right now. And this is going to be kind of like an informal type of video. So I'm going to start off with a stick figure, right? We'll call this average student. And let's talk about the number one thing that an average student who's going to be successful in math has, okay? The number one thing that they have is a good attitude. And that attitude, really, what I mean is that they believe in themselves, okay? They have a good attitude about learning because they believe they can learn, right? So, like, yes, I can learn math. I could be successful, right? So I can learn math, okay? And this is really scribble scratchy stuff here, but this happens to be the number one reason where people struggle in math. Okay, they think that they're bad in math. They think they're bad in math, all right, or they can't learn math. Now, if there's an old saying, I forget who said it. I want to say it was one of those old philosophers. Anyways, the saying goes something like this: whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, either way you are correct. So to be successful in math, you got to believe in yourself. Okay, and I know that sounds kind of corny, but if you don't have confidence in your ability to learn, you're not going to be able to learn no matter how clear and understandable the math instruction is. Now, if you've had a track record of poor performance, maybe you failed a couple math classes, don't get down on yourself, right? What you have to do is figure out what your starting point is. Maybe you have to take a couple steps backwards to kind of strengthen your foundation, but you can climb the steps. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but you can learn mathematics. Okay, and by the way, too, I want to say that this is all relative. Not everyone is going to be a PhD in mathematics. So I'm talking about mostly people in middle school, high school, and college level mathematics. Right, you can do reasonably well and pass generally with more than, let's say, like a C or just minimally passing. Matter of fact, most of you out there, 99% of the students that I've taught have the potential capability to really ace the math course. Some students are going to have to work harder than others, but that's okay. The bottom line is this: if you think you're bad in math, you're really doing yourself a disservice, right? That's really creating a brick wall, and you're not going to be able to learn. So start believing in yourself, right? I believe in you, and I'm not patronizing you as well. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I know you're capable of learning. So you have to make a decision, right? Are you going to truly make an investment? And that's why this video kind of titled it, This is Important Tips for those of you that are serious about learning math. Now, if you really don't care one way or another, well, then, this video is not for you. But that is the number one thing, all right? So the number one thing is your mental attitude. Now, if you have a good mental attitude, well, I think the rest of the stuff is going to be, kind of common sense, but this is important and really, really important stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and get into kind of the tips and techniques that make someone successful in math. Now, there's probably exceptions to my little tips here, but quite frankly, I have not seen too many cases where people who are doing well in math are not doing these things. Okay, so what is the first thing? Well, the first thing is that they ask questions. So, in other words, raise your hand, right? And I'm kind of, so speaking for those of you that are students, if you don't understand something, don't be shy to ask a question, right? Hey, Mr. Math Teacher or Mrs. Math Teacher, I don't get this. Okay, now here's the thing. If you're constantly asking questions and your teacher is teaching, giving the information, but you're too busy because you're not paying attention because you're on your cell phone, well, then your teacher is going to not be happy with you, right? So you got to be, focused, and you have to really be paying attention. So this is a whole nother thing. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and put this out as a separate thing. You have to be hyper focused. You got to be super focused on what's going on. And if you're focused and you don't understand something, then ask questions. That's what the teacher's job is. Now, some of you out there might say, well, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I don't have a nice math teacher. My math teacher is really mean, or I don't understand what they're saying. Well, here's the thing. Maybe in class, you got to remember your teacher's, trying to teach maybe 30 students at a time with different learning styles. Okay. They're really trying to push out a lot of information, in a short period of time. So what you want to do is try to get time, with your teacher, after school, before school. In other words, your teacher is by far going to be your best math tutor, okay? Because they know your work, they know how you're learning, and you got to ask questions. Now, here's the thing, your teacher is going to be able to help you if you're doing the next thing, okay? Then the next thing is you are basically being super neat and you're showing all your work. This is critical, okay? Not too many students are successful in math that are very sloppy or don't show the work. If I have a big equation up here, some huge algebra equation, and I just try like to not, show the work and then solve the solution, there's no way that you're going to be able to do all these steps in your head. You can maybe do one or two steps, but certainly your teacher is not going to follow your work. And a lot of people who struggle in math are, somewhat sloppy, or they get a little bit, for lack of a better word, lazy on showing the steps, showing the work. It takes time. Math is a language, okay? So when you're solving a problem, whether it be an algebra problem, trigonometry problem, basic math problem, doesn't make a difference. You're telling a story. You're going from the problem and you're telling the story of how we had a problem and eventually we arrived at the solution. Okay, now your teacher wants to read this story. Okay, it's a language. So they're like, hey, this is an interesting story. Here's what's happening in the story, step by step by step. Now, if you kind of start off your story and say, once upon a time, the end, well, your teacher is not going to, appreciate that. And you're not going to appreciate that either because there's no track record, there's no proof of what's going on. So if you are not that neat, or if you struggle in showing your steps, what you need to do is slow down. Okay, just take your time and just work on being neater. This is a process, and what you're doing is creating a habit. Okay, it's not going to happen overnight, but just slow down and focus on writing out one problem nice and neat and structured, and be proud of it. Be like, hey, look at that. I can even read my work. And when you turn into your teacher can help you because even if you have a mistake right here, they can be like, oh, okay. If your question is, I've been paying attention in class, I'm trying to do the problem right, but here's my work, I still got it wrong. Well, your teacher can be like, oh, you don't understand this part right here. And then they can correct that part, and then everything else will make sense. Okay, so to be successful in math, you gotta be able to really show your work. And yes, there are people that are kind of sloppy in math. There are exceptions, but I can tell you right now, 99% of the students that I've seen throughout the decades are, neat and structured. You got to be organized. This is critically important. All right, so let's just kind of quickly review what we have right now. One, you got to have a good attitude, right? Believe in yourself. The second thing is you got to ask questions, but you have to be paying attention. You got to be extremely focused. And when you ask questions, right, you got to be able to show your work, okay? Or be like, hey, here's my work. It's got to be neat. You got to have all your steps laid out. Now, this brings me to my next thing, and my next thing is notes, right? Note taking is critical. Matter of fact, I would say that there's almost a direct correlation to those students who have really clear, detailed, super organized notes and their grades. Matter of fact, it's almost like a one-to-one correlation. Those students who have like perfect notes almost always get like those A pluses. And the opposite is true. Those people that students who don't take notes, well, guess what? They're like, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, can you, well, no, they wouldn't call me Mr. YouTube Math Man, but they would be, hey, Mr. Math Teacher, please have mercy on me. Can I do some makeup work so I can pass my class? Well, listen, I was that student way back in the good old 1980s and 70s. I was like not the best student, okay? It wasn't until I joined the United States Marine Corps, I got a little discipline in me, and then later on, I eventually went to college. But you have to have discipline. You got to be serious about learning. So if you're struggling in math, it really doesn't, well, for the most, there's always exceptions, okay? Especially if you're dealing with some sort of, learning disorder, dyslexia or whatever the case is. Yeah, obviously, that's going to be kind of tough, for you to maybe learn. But even in those scenarios, and I've worked with a lot of students who've had all different sorts of special, kind of situations, you can work through them, modify things, and still be successful, right? It really comes again down to your attitude. All right, so you got to have a good attitude. You got to ask questions. You got to be hyper focused. You got to be neat, structured. You got to take notes, all right? And your notes have got to be like your notes should be at the level where the teacher should be calling upon you to say, hey, Billy was out last week. He was out sick. Billy's looking for notes. You should have the quality of your notes should be of such quality that Billy or anyone else could read your notes and learn. Note taking is an art, and it is, it's not easy either, because the teacher is giving a lot of information in real time. So you want to work on really having the best notes as possible. This is going to be like gold for those of you that have to take math exams. And here is another tip. Do not throw away your notes at the end of the year. Keep your notes, okay? They're like customized little math books, okay? Especially, for you, all right? And you should be very proud of this. So don't keep your notes and guard them, because a lot of people who have great notes, I'm telling you right now, you're going to be a very popular person in your math class. Okay, so let's talk about some other obvious things, and that is you got to practice. You got to do all the homework. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, Mr. YouTube Math Man, when it comes to homework, I'll do it like every other day, or maybe I'll do like 30% of the homework, right? That was me. Matter of fact, I was just like copying people's homework, and I'm just being fully transparent. That's not going to work, okay? If you're committed to learning math, you got to do the homework. Even if you're struggling with the homework, if you're showing all the work and you're being nice and neat and you took good notes in class, you're paying attention and you ask questions. If you don't understand something in homework, well, the next day you got to ask questions, because the teacher is giving you homework problems. Or, for example, in my math courses, what I do is I give you a variety of problems. Okay, so in other words, I give you some easy, basic problems on a particular topic, and then I get into more challenging problems, and then more difficult, and maybe even some word problems. So there's a diversity of problems within the homework. So you can't just do a few problems in a homework and be like, oh, I'm getting it right. I must be, a genius. No, no, no. You have to practice, all the homework. All right. In other words, you got to do all the homework problems, because your teacher is going to be selecting good problems. Okay, so a lot of this stuff seems like common sense, and it is common sense. It's simple. Okay, these are simple concepts, but simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. Okay, because you got to be doing this on a consistent daily basis. Consistency is key, and that's where self-discipline comes in, and commitment to learning the subject. And you're going to have your good days and bad days. So let's talk about a few other things. And the next thing is, yes, indeed, make sure you study before a test, okay? Even if you know the material, you know, don't be like, yeah, I got a test on Friday. I'm going to ace it because I understand all the homework. I understand all the notes and lectures. I'll just be able to, like, study 5 minutes before the test, and I'll be able to do well. Yeah, if you do that, I'm telling you right now, you're going to maybe do okay, but you're not going to do as well as you could have, okay? So study before test, and the minimum amount of time is at least one night before, okay? And you should really try to give yourself a couple, 2, 3 days. And if you're struggling with something, make sure you go see your teacher and be like, hey, I know we have a test coming up. I still don't understand this thing. Can you review this with me? And if you go and you ask your teacher about this test, say, hey, I'm concerned about this test. I don't understand this. Oftentimes, okay, the teacher doesn't even realize it. They very well may give you a little bit of a secret kind of tip or clue what's going to be on that test. And you got to pay attention in class. If you're focused on what the teacher's saying, the teacher's going to emphasize certain things. It's going to be like, all right, now this is really, really important. If they say something like that, put stars next to that in your notes because that's almost guaranteed to be on your test. All right, so and when it comes to test, do not throw away your test. If you're allowed to keep your test because when it comes to final exam time, basically you're going to be doing the same thing, right? So most courses have a final exam, and before you go ahead and take that final, what you want to do is review all your previous chapter work and be like, all right, what did I do well in? What did I do not so good in? And you want to work on your weaknesses. But one thing that people do, okay, is they assume that they remember all their strong areas, right? Like, oh, yeah, I'm great at the quadratic formula. I don't need to review that. You need to constantly be reviewing. And that's another thing here. And we'll call it a wrap after this. And if you want to be successful in math, you have to go back and review all the things that you've learned. Okay, so in other words, do a problem here and there, and your teachers, a good teacher is going to have pop quizzes that will bring in previous material. And that's for a reason because they don't want you to forget. Okay. So you need to review previous material. And if you want a little kind of strategy to really kind of see if you're retaining the information, okay, and this is where it comes down to retention here. The top things you can do for retention is take notes, all right? This is really key, okay? If you really take notes and really understand what's going on, that's going to really help you out. But another great thing that you can do to really gauge whether in fact you comprehend the material is to see if you can teach the material to someone else. So maybe your best friend is saying, hey, I'm totally lost in this subject. What's going on here? If you can explain, something to someone else and they can actually learn it, then wow, that means that you really get what's going on. And you can do this with your teacher as well. And say, all right, teacher, you're telling me X, Y, Z how to solve a quadratic equation. Let me go ahead and just tell you what I thought I heard, right? So when you ask questions or you have time with your teacher, you should try to teach back with them and let them critique you, okay? So you're saying, basically you would say something to the effect like, all right, so the way I understand how to do this is X, Y, Z, and then you do this, you do that. And so you're kind of going through these procedures or these kind of strategies in your head. Okay, so I kind of gave you a lot of tips here. None of this is really, say, rocket science. It's not a big mystery. And they're simple things, okay, but they require commitment, they require discipline. So if you're struggling in math, okay, I'm just telling you right now, you can be successful in math if you are willing to do the work. And if you start just doing this work, okay, especially for those of you that have had a tough time in math. Matter of fact, let's just do something real quick. If you had a tough time in mathematics, maybe you failed here or failed there, it could be for a lot of different reasons. It's not just all on you, okay? You could have had something going on, at home, okay, some sort of extenuating circumstance. You could have been in a school that's, for lack of better words, not too good. Maybe your teacher was not qualified. Maybe your teacher was not giving you encouragement. They didn't really care about you, or maybe they didn't even know how to teach math. So there's a lot of reasons why people can kind of go through a system and still be kind of lost. And the one thing that bothers me the most, and it's probably one of the top reasons that I do what I do, okay, especially on YouTube, is I've heard this so many times, and it's something to this effect. Way back in 1964, I had some math teacher that told me I was terrible at math, and they really said that I wasn't going to be anything. And I have come across so many people that have these stories that some teacher along the way planted the seed in their head that that they are not capable of doing math, okay? Or someone, maybe a teacher or someone else, someone convinced someone that convinced a person that they're bad in math, okay? And they just took that as being, absolute evidence, and it impacted their entire life. There was people that I know that wanted to be engineers, but went in a different direction because, someone said that, yeah, you're not going to ever learn calculus. You're just not capable of doing that. So this is why I'm very passionate about teaching math, okay? Because math, even if you don't learn or use math or use, let's say, yeah, algebra or quadratic equations on your daily basis, the main thing about learning math, in my opinion, is really being able to solve complex problems and having confidence in yourself. Okay. So I believe in you. And whatever happened in the past, what you need to do is go back and figure out your starting point. Determine what do I know and what don't I know. Okay. That's just your starting point. Okay. It's like a ladder here. And here's a ladder. So maybe some of you are here, some of you are here, or some of you are here. They're just rungs of a ladder. Now, if you're supposed to be here, but really your math skills are right there, well, we have to be honest, okay? We'll be like, all right, well, this is where I'm at, for whatever reason. Maybe, the support, the teacher I didn't have didn't really, help me climb these rungs, but take personal responsibility and say, I'm going to take things in my own hand and start doing these things right here, okay? Start believing in yourself. I'm going to, well, I don't like to make guarantees, but I can pretty much guarantee you that if you're consistent and do these things right here, you are going to be very successful in mathematics. All right, so again, my channel is all about trying to make math clear and understandable. And I love doing different math problems, from basic math to more advanced math. But really, if we don't talk about these things right here, if you're, following my videos because you're serious about learning math, well, then we really have to review, what it takes to be successful in math. So hopefully this little video helped you out. If that's the case, don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your math adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.